Hi, welcome to Philly Market News. I'm so excited that we are in Miami today. It's a little video to take us right to meet with Sarah Desmores, who is our specialist, a luxury specialist in Miami and Southern Florida that I have the pleasure of having met a few years ago. So excited to have you with us today, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Okay, so much is going on, as we were talking about. We literally were just released by our governor late yesterday to be able to serve our clients. We were the last state and the last county under this lockdown situation. And I know it's terribly confusing and very scary. And Florida has been active with restrictions for some time now. So first of all, would love to hear your take overall, the big picture of the market as it is and what you see coming.
So what I've seen happen, right? Everybody, we've never lived this in our living life, right? A pandemic. We've lived through 9/11, we've lived through the crash, but nothing like this where things were closed, where we couldn't even go see our loved ones, right? So this is very new to everyone. The thing that I've noticed in Miami, though, is that we were deemed essential from the beginning. Okay. So I was never, I never had to end my showings, right? I never had to cut off clients or anything or take breaks. The only thing that I've noticed that really had a big hit, right? So the single family homes where people living in the homes that were 60 and over, either the property was temporarily off market or it was very difficult to show. Another thing is for when it came to condos, especially the luxury condos, in the full amenities buildings, most of these condos, for example, the Turnberry in Aventura, which is a very well-known luxury condo in that area, they said no showings at all. And what's interesting is that when they said that is the day that I got all my pictures and my videos from a listing I'm getting there. So, we had to put that on pause for a little bit, but although we were deemed essentials, very hard to show condos and harder to show homes where, it's more baby boomers living inside those homes. And what's interesting is that those are the ones who are selling their big home going to a condo. And the people going to a condo wanting to start a family in a bigger home. So it did cause a few showing requests being denied.
Yeah. Absolutely. Are you seeing any shift in desirability of condos? Any fear of the social distancing situation?
Of course, that's one of the things. One of the first things that I've noticed in Miami. I personally live in a condo. I love it, but there are a couple of people that live in a condo that realize, you know what, I need more space. I can't deal with this right now. It's too small. I can't take my bicycle inside. It's complicated. You know what? I think a house might be better for me. Another thing I'm seeing is that people who were in a condo who wanted to put their condo on the market, maybe this summer for sale, for them to move to the suburbs to start a family, they're rushing the process now. Now they're like, listen, we're not even going to wait until the summer. We'll list the condo later, especially if their new purchase is not contingent on the sale. They'll just say, let's sell it now. Let's put it on the market later. We need to move. We can't stay in this condo. The same way, and very interesting, that's something very, very interesting that I've seen. I have a listing that went under contract in a suburban area, and the owner was like, this quarantine made me realize I definitely don't want a house because spending 4 weeks alone in this big house was very depressing. He said he needs to see people and he felt so confined. So it's very interesting what's going on. We thought, as realtors that the business would stop, especially in the luxury market. But I'm seeing things that I could not have predicted, which still translate into business.
That's interesting. And it's like that cross back and forth because like we were talking a little bit before we went live. Here, for instance, we're seeing where challenge in our mainline suburban area with some of the older estate homes that have 8 bedrooms and, they're very lush and that was attractive, 20 years ago. Prior to this pandemic, that was viewed something as a negative because most of the people moving from the city they still wanted to have access to be able to walk to shopping and restaurants and so on. Sometimes even a pool was being viewed as a negative because of the upkeep and maintenance and risk. Now we're getting New Yorkers coming to the mainline into the greater Philadelphia area who want a pool, so some of the things also, the size to say if you can have a home gym, you can have two, if you realizing you need that size. If you're a stay at home, if you're doing homeschooling and you have two adults that need home offices and you want to have a home gym, and maybe even make one of them into home theater, right?
It's so true. I'm seeing that here too. And another thing in that same line that I'm seeing is that people that were already on the market to buy a condo that are, some of these people, there's people like me, I prefer condos, no matter pandemic or no pandemic, I prefer condos. I have clients like that, right? So what I'm seeing is that the same clients I was helping, 100% of them changed their criteria for a bigger condo. And most importantly, a bigger balcony. My client said, you know what, I'll pay $200,000 more. I'd rather pay more to get a corner unit so I can have a wraparound balcony, so I can put my Peloton, so I can put a jacuzzi on that balcony. There's a building called Gran Paraiso where the penthouse units have a jacuzzi on the balcony, right? Oh. So I've had clients change their budget just to start looking at those units because they said, if I'm going to be home for a long time, you never know what can happen. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable on my balcony, right? If we can't use the amenities in the building.
Wow, that's interesting. And I think part of the mindset too is, of course, the worst has happened and we're like, no one predicted this. No, but also what we're hearing and seeing, and I think all of us, even as realtors, we're learning, we all work from home, but now we're doing it on a different level. And I'm hearing that from, like I said, from attorneys in New York who have decided, realizing that they could be in the office 2 days a week. No matter, regardless of crisis, which opens up a whole different lifestyle to be able to live in a different environment and know that you can maximize your home space to work from home or homeschool as well.
Yeah, especially the homeschool. Most of the people who are rushing me to move out of their condo have kids at home, and they say, you have to work at home. Let's say you live in a 2-bedroom condo and you have one child or two, right? Everyone's working from home and you have to homeschool your kid. That's not a lot of space, right? So I have these people saying, you know what, Sarah, I told you this summer, but let's start now. I can't do it.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying, like at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the market reports that I was seeing, we're talking about a V-shaped recovery, that basically the pent-up demand and there would be a strong fall in essence, or what we were experiencing in spring would be postponed. And
that's what I feel too. I think so too.
Okay. I can see that happening, but then as we talked about a little bit, there are also other complexities, you live by the ocean, I used to live by the ocean, sort of, like riptides and undercurrents when it comes to the potential impact of distressed properties or people who can't pay their mortgage, or the long tail effect of the economic situation that we're in, which is unlike, as I said, unlike anything else. I heard people say it's not 2008, and that is true, but this is unlike anything else.
We've never seen it.
We've never seen it. And the level of unemployment, there's market segments that won't be touched by that, but there are also other market segments, just how the virus has flown, been unpredictable. I sense that we're going to have some of these riptides and currents, so to speak, that can impact even those parts of the market that at this point seem untouchable. I know Florida, like we were talking, was in the short sale quagmire market foreclosure.
I admire you for that. It must have been very tough during that time.
It was, and I think Florida was our sister state that was going through about the same amount of struggle. That's probably the two worst in the country. Yeah. So that's what comes to my mind also. No, we're not in 2008, but there's been a lot of misinformation about forbearances that people unfortunately are taking action on. That could put them at risk in 6 months or a year when that forbearance is up. As well as the fact of people losing jobs or losing businesses, business owners, where their whole world has shifted and things are upside down. What's your sense? I mean, I know for us in the market, the over leveraged properties were, of course, the highest risk. I think even the worst of times like this, if we can weather through, if your property is not over leveraged, or it can be rented out, to cover itself. What's your sense in the Southern Florida market? Do you see any risk of foreclosures or distressed properties affecting you?
So unfortunately, I would have to say that it could be a possibility. One of the first things I noticed in when this pandemic started, the first market I saw that was the most affected in terms of renters was the Miami Beach area. And that's my experience with the clients that I work with, because all of a sudden my clients who owned properties in Miami Beach, their tenants couldn't pay anymore because they lost their job. Because what happened is the most strict part of Miami when it came to the pandemic in terms of lockdown and whatnot was Miami Beach. Miami Beach and South Beach is the number one tourist spot in Miami, right? So hotels closed, shut down, all the restaurants shut down, beaches shut down. So can you imagine how many businesses had to shut down and how many hotel employees, valet guys, servers in restaurants, everyone lost their jobs. So my clients who are investors who own properties, a lot of them had tenants either have to leave, go back to their parents because they're like, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. Or, you've had a couple of tenants. I had to work with with my clients to say, listen, it's better instead of just, charging them extra or like a late fee or whatnot. How about you find a way to reduce their rent for a couple of months until things open back up? Because when things open back up, some of them will get their job back, right? It's just a temporary situation. So, we saw a lot of those. And fortunately, my clients are people that, the ones I was working with and the ones who were affected by that, I'm pretty sure that they're okay with their mortgage, even if they don't get as much money or even if they get a month or two without getting rent. But it's not the case for everyone, right? For some people, just 2-3 weeks without work is enough to make them not be able to pay their mortgage for a couple of months, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, especially when it comes to people who are in the service industries, if you have a couple that both of them have lost income, unemployment is not going to be enough to cover the rent here, right?
Absolutely.
It's very sad. I'm not sure in the luxury sector. I think I'm seeing it. I'll see it more on the investment side. Right? If you had an investment and you're renting it out, you might lose some money. But in the, I would say anywhere, more on the average side, I think that we might see some foreclosures or some short sales. Hopefully the government will take action on that to delay some payments and to provide some recourse, because it's not one person, it's the entire world that's going through that.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that we're seeing that here too. And it's investors who maybe didn't ever anticipate being in this situation, because they're savvy business people, but they have a lot of rentals, and so if all of a sudden your tenants are not paying rent, it's a snowball effect. And some very difficult decisions that have to be made about what to do from there. So we did, later, if you want to, there's an interview with a litigating attorney who works specifically with landlords in that situation. And, it's all about options. I guess my theme in trying to have a platform for people like yourself and other experts is it came to me in the shower the other day, when you ask about the market, it's complicated.
It's complicated. It's like, what are we we've never lived through that.
Yeah.
Neither did our parents, right? So this is something that we cannot predict. And even if 100 years ago they lived through that, they didn't have the technology that we have today. So it's something that we're all going to have to live day by day. But the good news is, and I say that to my clients, I say that to everyone, I say people will always need a roof over their head.
Yes.
Always, no matter what, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a war, no matter what it is, people are always going to need a roof over their head, no matter how much money they make, right? So I am very positive that things will bounce back. The tenants that couldn't pay their mortgage, eventually they'll get a job. Hopefully, I know the hotels are not going to shut down. They're going to come. We live in a touristic area. And another thing I saw a lot is that I have clients who own properties that are Airbnbs, right? That they Airbnb, they've been fully booked, because you have people that live up north, and they said, you know what, if I'm going to be quarantined, I'd rather be, in a warm weather, right?
Wow.
So that's another investment opportunity that some people may have overlooked before. But the Airbnb market here is great. Pandemic or not, things were fully booked.
That's interesting to hear, because I've seen clients here who have an Airbnb who are quick to sell because they're seeing it not be booked. So I guess maybe,
I don't think not as many people would go to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
and to Florida during a pandemic because and you even had people, and that was the most interesting thing here. You have Florida residents, including realtor friends of mine, who live in a condo, who don't want to buy a new house, but what they did, they just Airbnb the property for a couple of months because they have their family, and they're like, the condo is too small, everyone works from home, let's Airbnb a property. That happened a lot.
Wow, interesting. Well, that's good to know, because I was joking in my mind, thinking if Airbnb is no longer, what are people going to do? Like, I love to travel, right? What do we have to do? Go back to an Airstream trailer and pull it around the country? I'm like,
that would be funny. That would be funny. But yeah, thankfully, Miami, that we're not missing short-term rentals, and that was very interesting. I even have a client who, she lives in New York. She has a really nice house here, and she usually Airbnbs it. And then she came from New York at the start of the pandemic. She was fine. So she stayed in her house. But almost every day I was getting a request for that house. Every day. Wow. Because usually she's not here during this time. And everyone's like, oh, like, we'll pay more. We'll pay double. People were offering a lot just to stay there.
It's tempting. I wish I was there too. Oh, that's lovely. That's good to hear. And let's hope, and I will say, even in the worst of times, which I went through, the values in Florida came back, just as they did in Hawaii. And, the old school real estate advice is real estate, is a long game. If people can weather through the shifts up and down, and it seems like what we're going to go through, like I was joking, is it a U, is it a V, is it a W, or is it going to be a Z type recovery? It could be a little complicated. It could be a little like
S. It could be a B. We have no idea.
We have no idea. But the point, is make plans that are good for the next 3 to 5 years. And I have buyers who are buying almost full price, over $1 million, but it's the right fit for them in this particular neighborhood. Recognizing a couple of different luxury deals. Like one I closed recently, though we're under contract, where the buyers were willing to pay a premium, recognizing there could be some fluctuations, but based on the home and the neighborhood and the long run, we're confident in the value.
It's the change of lifestyle too that people are looking at. Now they're, I was reading an article where it said, now people are really understanding the value of a home.
Yes.
Right. When you have a property and you're working all day and you're just there a couple of hours to sleep, right? It's not the same as staying there all day. So people are putting more value into the quality of the home that they'll purchase. I'm seeing that shift as well.
Are you finding, I was listening to a luxury agent in California talking about very much that buyers want everything move-in ready, and he was talking about the time is the new luxury, like people don't want to spend the time, recognizing how precious time is, that they'd rather have things renovated, ready to move in.
So here I'm seeing two parts of that. So yes, a lot of my millennial buyers, most of my millennial buyers or the younger crowd or the younger families, they do not have time to be home all day to supervise some renovations in a property, right? So I'm seeing that a lot, and people would rather take something that's maybe not as renovated as they would want, exactly how they would want, but just as long as there's minimal renovation. So yeah, that's something that has been very significant in the past, I would say 2-3 years. People don't have time for that. However, depending on the neighborhood that you're moving to. Another thing I'm seeing is that people will, if they cannot find the property that they're looking for, right? So there's an area called Pinecrest where the land is huge. So you can find an older property there, depending on your budget, tear it down and then build your own if you want the land. So I'm seeing people that want to live in a specific neighborhood but can't find a property that suits their needs in terms of size, number of bedrooms and whatnot. And they would rather pay a little bit less and get an old home that needs a complete renovation and then do the renovation themselves. But by doing that, they add a lot of equity to the property, because in that area, when a property is renovated, it goes for more than double, right? So that's something I'm seeing, especially when people can't find their home. And what's going on now, people have more time. So people are driving around more, looking at lots and just driving around neighborhoods and looking at old tear downs and, telling me, hey, Sarah, can you check out this property? It looks like there's nobody living in it. Can you find out a little bit more about it?
Interesting. Well, I have next week, I don't know if you ever met him, Jeremy Bowers. He's CEO of KW Philly.
I've heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked him to come on board because it interests me. He knows that I work with distressed properties. He reached out to me looking for investment opportunities, which I found interesting at a time when it's, I guess, exactly what you're talking about, more of the higher end renovation properties on his personal investment goal. And, I would think in these uncertain times, people wouldn't be willing to take on a project, but that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one of the things that are you finding that sellers are not wanting to go on the market? Is your inventory very low?
So I've seen so the ones who weren't motivated, now's the perfect time, right? To say,
Right.
what, I'm not sure, I don't know. But my sellers who were motivated, they're all very anxious to go back on the market, especially the ones with the condo sales. I have a listing, the one I told you that the building decided to, no more showings for realtors. Yesterday, the building sent an email saying that, okay, they could restart showing as of that date. And the second my client got it, she forwarded it to me because she goes, I need to get rid of this, right? So what these times are showing me is really which sellers are motivated, which ones are not. Okay. The ones who aren't, they were the first ones to say, oh, take it off the market. They didn't tell me, hey, is there any other strategy that we can do to still sell?
Right.
Because properties still went under contract with 3D tours. People were willing to wait to see a couple of properties, right? So if they were very quick to say, oh, let's just take it off the market, I'm not sure. Those are usually the same sellers that wouldn't do a price reduction, that wouldn't listen to us when we talked about staging. And the ones who are motivated kept it on the market and were open to ideas of doing different marketing strategies.
Excellent. Now, working with buyers, here our inventory has been so low that I had to include temporarily off market, withdrawn, and expired for the last 3 months. I just consider that part of my active inventory, to try to do matchmaking, either through their prior agent or contacting them directly, because there's basically nothing on the market. So have you found working with buyers that you have to kind of dig beneath the surface to find the right match?
100%. Especially, we're talking about condos a lot because here you have a big population of people who live in condos. So I had to look at all of the temporarily off-market condos to see and contact the agents. And most of the times they were like, actually, it's still there. It's just that we can't show. So I would tell them, hey, send me a virtual tour if you have one. Can we sneak into the building as a friend, right? To just look at the property. There's different things we could do. Another thing I'm seeing with buyers, some buyers, and I don't know if you're experiencing that, my buyers that are on the higher end, some of them are like, oh, let's wait. I'm sure the prices will go down.
Oh, interesting.
I'm getting that.
Yeah.
The way that I address it, I said, it's a risk. They could not, because the moment they start opening it back up, back then, during the pandemic, maybe there were only 5 buyers looking at this property, right? And you were one of them. But once everything opens back up, next thing you know, the same property, there's 20 buyers looking at it.
Yes.
So it's a risk. It could, once the pandemic is over, the seller might realize, oh my God, I'm not getting traction, let's reduce. Or, like I said, you can have a flood of buyers, the ones that were taking a break. Now everyone's looking at this unit, right? So it's a risk, but I'm getting that objection a lot. The whole, I'm sure that people are gonna lose their, they're gonna want to reduce or cash out or whatnot. I've had a couple of buyers try to make me present a very, very, very low ball offer.
Yes.
A historically low ball offer.
It's always uncomfortable. And, sometimes it's important for people to remember that the win is getting the house that fits for you long term,
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated with the things that you share. Thank you so much. It's very refreshing to touch base with you and hear what's going on in your part of the world. Soon, hopefully, we'll be able to actually travel in person more easily. And, what I love about connecting this way is I really believe we are all in this together, and as realtors, we're a tribe here to help the community, regardless, doesn't matter what city, what brokerage, we're all working together.
I love that we stayed in touch after all these years.
Yes. So happy to have you in my studio. Wish you could come over for coffee as well, but another time. So thank you so much, Sarah.
My
And
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
please, if anybody's looking for help with your Florida properties, or you know anybody, definitely keep Sarah in top of mind and follow her on social media. She's one of the top 20 Miami agents on social media. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Let's see, we want a little beach on the way out, or should we do something else?
As you wish.
We go back to the beach? Okay.
You asked such good questions. That was great.
Okay.